I was in a privileged position where I had a choice to take the severance or not, or like to continue with the company. So I was like, oh, was I selfish to take the severance? And also at the time, I didn't think the job market would be this bad. So like my confidence was like at an all-time high.
Let's start this thing, Paul. Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Ask the Duo podcast, a podcast where we aim to build better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, and this week on mindset, we're going to be talking about mindset in the sense of redundancy and finding job, career journeys. And I know that we've done one in the past with Sam, and that was when he got made redundant twice. But we are going to be discussing redundancy with someone all the way in New York, and he recently got made redundant, and we just want to walk through just his mindset and what he's thinking and what he's going through right now and what it's like applying for new jobs over in New York. So we've had Thomas on our podcast a few weeks ago doing a fun little episode on Let's Get Deep, but we're going to go deeper this week with him talking about his redundancy journey. So, welcome Thomas.
Thanks for having me back. Thanks
for joining us.
Very nice.
So, did you want to walk us through a little bit of what's happening in your career journey right now, just to give our listeners a little background?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working as a software engineer for like 10 years now, which is kind of crazy to say.
Yeah, that's a long time.
You've hit the decades.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. So I've been working for about 10 years now. And over my career, I have survived like 8 some layoffs. Oh, first we call them layoffs in the US. Like when you brought it up as a redundancy, I was like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that means.
Oh, you don't actually hear that word at all?
No. Like we might use like some euphemisms like, oh, we got affected today, impacted, but typically the term that we typically use is layoffs. Yeah.
We learned something new today.
Yeah, so in my career, I've survived like 8 of them at multiple companies.
Damn.
Different sizes as well. And then this was the first one where I was actually affected. I got laid off. So what happened was I joined a startup in 2020, like late 2020, and the startup I was working at got acquired by a larger company. And then earlier this year, the company decided to divest from the startup, meaning that it's going to, from a business sense, split itself away from it, right? So like to sell it.
Right.
And so I actually had an opportunity to continue with the next venture of the startup, or I could take a severance package. Like I've never been laid off, and I've always dreamed of severance.
So you're like, I'm going to take that.
I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, this is also the most generous severance package I've ever seen. So I was like, if there's ever a time to get laid off, this one's it. So yeah, exactly. So, and then now the process completed in May and I'm still looking for a job. So it's been quite a tough job market.
Yeah, I can just imagine. And working in tech as well, right?
Yeah. And I think I don't know what your interviews are like, but for tech, the current industry trend is like when you do interviews, there's like a couple rounds. And there's typically like a technical round where you do like either they give you a take-home assignment where you have to write some code to build something, or they do like a live coding challenge with you.
Whoa.
Wow, that's crazy.
And a lot of these challenges are like not things you would typically work on in a work setting. So it doesn't matter if you've been working for like, 1 year, 10 years, 20 years. Like these are problems that you would never see at work.
Wow.
Yeah, okay.
And it's partly just to like, part of it is to demonstrate like a good understanding of like algorithms and theory and things like that, and making sure that you can actually code, because a lot of people can BS on the resume, right? And so this is one of the ways that the industry has figured out, like root out people who can't code, essentially, right? I mean, it's what all interviews are. It's a filtering process, right? But so it's essentially like a live pressure test, right? You usually have like 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how complex the problem is, and you have to be able to like break down the problem, understand it. You have to be able to like speak aloud while you're like writing code, because you need to communicate. You need to be able to communicate to your interviewer as well, right? It's like testing you for multiple things, and it's kind of just like depending on who you ask, it's kind of like an absurd format, but that's what it is these days.
That
so
sounds hectic.
Yeah, sounds crazy.
yeah. So it's been pretty tough. So with like, especially with that requirement as well.
So is it kind of more like, for example, I'm just thinking in the context of you go to uni, you do your exams, but then after you leave uni, you realize half those things, those scenarios in those assignments and exams, like they're not really realistic. And then you go in the real world, you're like, what was I even doing?
Yeah, it's a little bit like that.
Yeah, because I've heard a few friends who are software engineers say that the processing for hiring in Australia is somewhat similar. So there's a few rounds where you have to do testings. But in terms of the live thing, that's pretty scary. Like to have someone sit there.
Kind of makes sense, because so what I've seen, because I am a UX UI designer, previously graphic designer. So what they do, like not every company does it. Sometimes you just go in, do the interview, and then they're like, yeah, I like you, like when do you want to start? But then there's some people who would actually get you to come into the office, and they'll give you an actual project and be like, "Hey, this is the brief, this is what we want." And then you sit there for an hour in the actual office, you design something, and you're like, here's the website. So I think in a scenario that's kind of similar to what you're going through as well. So there is a bit of that kind of process, but it just depends on the business.
Yeah, definitely.
So we just wanted to know what it's like just working in New York and like the job markets in New York, and give our listeners just a little understanding of life in New York.
Yeah. So I think New York is really interesting. So I'm from California, which is on the West Coast. And I went to school in San Jose and worked nearby too, which is basically where Silicon Valley is. So typically in Silicon Valley area, everyone, or like San Francisco, like everyone works in tech. If they're not software engineers, they're like, they're in accounting and tech, they're in HR and tech, they're, design in tech, right? Whatever it is, you're probably likely to be working in tech. And New York is actually very different. Like there's like so many industries, not just tech, but like, finance, acting, Broadway, theater, and there's also like a huge service industry side. So it's like you really get a chance to meet people from all walks of life, which I find is really interesting.
Yeah,
cool. Where it's like when you have kind of like a monoculture where it's like everyone is like kind of like following the same trends. Like you kind of see this in like smaller Asian countries, let's say like in South Korea or Japan, where like if there's a one hit thing, like the whole country is into it, right? Yeah. And that kind of thing kind of happens with Silicon Valley as well. Like if there's something that's cool, everyone is doing it, right? Let's say rock climbing, which was a thing.
Didn't you do that for a little bit too, like bouldering?
I did, but I did it before it was cool.
So you were the
trendsetter. Years ago. Yeah.
That's so interesting. And do you think that's what influenced you to start doing something like software engineering, or was it something that you also wanted to do?
I went to school for computer engineering, which is, so I studied both software and hardware. Midway through, I decided, after taking like a circuits class, I decided I never wanted to touch hardware again. So I went full into the software side, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I really enjoyed it because it's like you can build something. Like even though it's virtual, you can build something. And if you work with hardware, you can build something that's more tangible. I love that there's like a feedback process, where you can see what you're making.
Yeah.
And so like that kind of fits my personality, and that's how like what I really enjoy about it. And also very important that the pay is good.
Yeah, of course.
And more importantly, actually, like the working culture is very different than a lot of places, right? So like if, for example, if you work in like a typical corporate culture is very like stuffy,
Mm.
right? So, but like tech kind of brought it down to where, you know, it doesn't necessarily matter how you dress at work. It's more about what you can produce, like your work should speak for itself, right? So for the like, you know, the duration of my career, I've mostly worn, you know, dressed very casually at work. So that's always been a plus as well.
And you always see, I don't know if it's true, or maybe you can let us know if it is or not, but for tech companies, it's always you've got really cool like equipment or fun stuff to do in the office, like table tennis and like, I don't know, even Google has like a slide that goes from like top level to
Yeah.
bottom level. Is it really that cool?
I mean, Google and Facebook, they took it to the next level
Yeah.
because they really try to make their campuses like a college campus.
Mm.
Like I visited the headquarters for Facebook, and
Mm.
there's like a section of the street where it literally looks like Disneyland.
Oh, what?
Because there's like they actually have like small shops on the campus,
What?
where you can like where you can like get stuff, whether it's like drinks, food. You can you could do laundry before. I don't know if you still can, but it's like they're it's like the best place for a new college grad because you're going from like one fun environment to another fun environment. For other tech companies, they're trying to do stuff like that too. Like my first job, like most places will have a ping pong table, a foosball table. That's like the more typical thing that places have. The campus I was working at in my first job had a sand volleyball court that was unique to it.
Wow,
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
so,
still
some places will have gyms
extreme.
on site. Some places will have like a basketball court. So it really varies.
That's still really cool,
Yeah.
like basketball court, volleyball court. That's
Yeah.
I haven't experienced that yet, so yet to see that.
Yeah, there was a software company that we shared the same office space with, and they used to have Nerf gun tournaments every afternoon. So everyone would be sitting in a shared office, and then they just pull out these guns and start shooting each other.
Oh my
God.
What the? Oh, for those that weren't watching, my cousin just came in with this white mask on her face.
You look great.
You're beautiful. Beauty within.
Oh god.
Yeah, I remember hearing about the Nerf wars too, and then like that only sounds appealing when you're a new college grad, when you don't actually have responsibilities.
Yeah.
And then 'cause, like I've talked to like more senior people, they're just like,
I have no time.
This is terrible.
Yeah, I have no time. This is ridiculous. This is wasting my time.
I have problems to solve. That is so true though. Like in that agency, and then people are like, oh, let's go do this. It's gonna be so fun and stuff. I'm like, I just don't have time. Like, don't talk to me. I just need to get stuff done.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but so earlier you asked what it's like to what it's like working in New York. Again, I think it really depends on what industry you're in and everything. But some commonalities are the subway is really hectic. Sometimes, especially in the mornings, if you have to get in the office early, it's jam packed. If it's summer, everyone's sweaty.
Gross.
If you like, there's all sorts of characters on the trains. The weather can make the commute a lot worse, whether it's humidity, rain, snow. It's a city of 8 to 9 million people, like with like crazy density. So there's a lot of crazy people. And like the typical, glamour that you see in New York, let's say like, what's that show? Like Sex and the City or whatever however New York is portrayed in, movies and stuff, like, all that glamour becomes noise because, you're just like focused on getting to work, blocking everything out, it's just like, it's sensory overload. So you have to be able to filter things out.
Yeah. I can just imagine, like, even when we went there, there are definitely some parts where you can see the glam of it, but then the other part that's not really mentioned, and you're like, it's kind of dirty. There's like rubbish everywhere. There's like rats on on the train tracks. And
yeah. Did you notice a massive difference between like the West Coast job industry to the East Coast?
So in Silicon Valley, there's definitely more job prospects in software. Like that's there. was a push for the New York tech scene. It is definitely smaller, and it's definitely more for like you're gonna run into more like places that are not primarily tech companies. So example is banking needs tech, right? Like everyone's trying to modernize banking tech. Like I've worked in music industry as well, also for tech.
True.
Like especially because New York is where all the major production studios are, like
Yep.
Warner Bros, NBC, Universal, Sony, right? So they have a tech need as well, right? So, but these are not tech first companies compared to like a Netflix or Facebook or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I say tech first as in like where their technology is kind of their moat, right?
Yep.
Compared to, as opposed to just purely like your business dealings and things like
Yep.
that.
No, that sounds like Brisbane. But just going back to a little bit of the redundancy and all that, just seeing how are you feeling? I know that you took that, was it the severage, what's it called? Severage plan?
Severance?
Yeah,
Severance,
severance
yeah.
plan?
Is that also called severance in Australia?
Well, technically it's called a redundancy package.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like did you feel like taking that severance package, it just helps you give a little bit of me time? Like what was the thought process between while you're trying to decide?
Like I was chatting with a ex-coworker about this too. It's just like that was a very tumultuous time emotionally. Just like there was so many things happening because we found out in March that the company that acquired us was planning to separate, right? So just from then, it was just like, what's my plan? What am I going to do? And it wasn't until mid-May that I decided. So basically, I got an offer to continue with the startup that I joined originally. I decided that it wasn't a good offer, and there was just like a lot of people, including myself, felt like the company, the startup founders, did not treat people very well. So it was just like a lot of ill will going around, right? So I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not taking this. And
Uh,
also at the time, I didn't think the job market would be this bad. So
Yeah.
like my confidence was like at an all time high. I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna find a job within 2 months, 3 tops, and then I'll be able to enjoy a bit of like double pay. Like that's always been the dream, to have severance and be able to find another job and then briefly enjoy double pay, and then yeah, so like obviously that didn't pan out, and it's been it's been the toughest job situation, a job market I've ever been in. Simply because like the company that I was at wasn't the only one doing layoffs. It was like a total like industry wide kind of thing where everyone was doing layoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of that was because during COVID, a lot of companies thought the future was going to be working from home. So then, and that kind of shifted a lot of consumer practices. So like everyone was doing a ton of shopping online, a ton of small businesses thrived during that time. So you saw a lot of utilization of like Amazon or Shopify, things like that, and then that also impacts the advertising side of things. So like Google, Facebook, all of that, they all saw a boon as well. So everyone thought this was going to be the future. So everyone started hiring like crazy. And then once COVID ended, once everyone things kind of settled down a little bit, and especially with like the economy not doing so hot, everyone's kind of like, oh man, like we made a huge mistake.
Yeah.
We need like these projects don't make sense anymore. So this headcount doesn't make sense anymore, right? And like for like especially software engineers, we're not cheap. So it's like layoff time.
That would be so hard, but yeah, I totally get it. And also now it's kind of the flip side. Everyone's like trying to get into the in-office experience now because everyone's been at home for so long. And what I've seen anyway, a lot of businesses are like, yeah, we're very about the culture. We want people to come back into the office and we want people to get together. Like it's all about that now. So it's kind of like,
Is that
yeah,
is that the sentiment in Australia? Because I know people hate the return to office initiatives.
yeah, well, I definitely don't like it. And it's just that I've seen a lot of people just talk about getting back into the office, and there's some actual businesses who are actually promoting like an office first approach.
Not just that though. I think there's a lot of businesses that are enforcing it too. So in Australia, that's what they're doing.
Oh wow, a lot of
Yeah.
people unhappy about it.
Yeah.
So you were also saying that when you first took that severance package, you were like so confident to find a new job and all that, and over time it's kind of chipping away at you. Like the more times you try and the more times you get rejected. So what's that process kind of been like, and what's your like mindset at the moment, like from when you started to now?
Man, it's just been really tough. Like, I made the mistake of interviewing with companies when I wasn't ready.
What do you mean?
Yeah,
by
what do you
that?
mean?
Like, I updated my resume immediately and I started applying to places, but I hadn't gone through interview prep. So interview prep, especially for tech, look, we mentioned earlier about, technical problems that like the coding challenges you have to do. So part of that is like, it's like studying for a standardized test. You have to practice for it because you have to be able to recognize patterns and be able to work under pressure, right? So that's what I didn't practice. And like a lot of times during the interview, like I would get so nervous. I would just like seize up and like like my brain would just not function. It was not good. Like it made it seem like I didn't know how to write code at all. And it was just, not a good impression. And then other things are like, there's like, so aside from technical, there's also behavioral questions that people tend to ask, the stuff of like, name a time you got into a conflict with your coworker. How did you resolve it? Right. Or like, what are your strengths? What would your coworkers say about you? And there's like kind of a specific format that you should be answering these questions in. And you also have to spend the time to, dig deep into your career and think about this of like how you should answer, and then think about how the answer makes you look as well. Right. And so these were all the things I didn't prepare enough. And I was just like, I dove straight in for interviews and just like kept getting crushed every time. And it was especially bad when I got rejected after like the final rounds, because before I've always job searched when I had a job, and that's never taken longer than 2 months. And like usually going through the final round, it meant that, I had it in the bag, like I was going to get an offer. And then, so it was like kind of a shock to me that I, having gone through a final round, like multiple times and not getting an offer, like that was just like, oh man, this is like completely different than what I'm used to as well.
Yeah, it would be.
That's kind of like you going on dates with that same person, and then by like the 5th date, they're like, nah, sorry,
Don't like
see
ya."
you later.
Yeah, no, I told Felicia, I told my wife that I was like, yeah, I think I used up all my luck getting with you. And so now that luck is not, because before I had no problem getting a job, but I had problems like trying to get a date. And now it's the inverse of it. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I think I used up all my luck getting with you.
No, your body is waiting for the perfect career to find you.
Yeah, no, but like it was quite tough, like mentally. So like aside from just like first I didn't do myself any favors just jumping straight into it. Like looking back, I probably should have taken a bit of rest time.
Yeah.
And like done proper preparation. Like I know a lot of my ex-coworkers, they like took time to travel, just like spent time playing video games, whatever it is, right, before they got into it.
Yeah.
And then it just led to a lot of like mental health issues where it's just like Felicia could just see like my mood of just like one day I'd be okay and the next day I'd be depressed and then back up. So it's just like I just kept swinging up and down like that, because it would like every time I got rejected, especially for like the final rounds, or if I couldn't even get a recruiter call, I was like, oh man, like am I even good enough for this industry? Or like and there's also of just like, because like I was in a privileged position where I had a choice to take the severance or not, or like to continue with the company. So I was like, oh, was I selfish to take the severance? Did I like screw us over? Because now it's not just me that I have to think about. So it's just like a lot of those things coming through my mind. And and it's like it's just like kind of it's like unhealthy spiraling.
Yeah.
But there's also, like you said, it may not be the healthiest place to work in if you did continue as well. So it's just realizing that if you did take it, you may not be in a happy place either. Like you might be struggling right now, but you might not be happy
Yeah, if you stayed
continuing
there.
that job
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah, that's what Flea says all as well. It's just like you never know what you'll just be thinking of what your life would be like if you had taken severance instead of if you had taken the offer.
yeah, like
Yeah.
there's always that what if, no matter what decision you take.
And it's just like typically when people go through layoffs, when they get laid off, made redundant, it's like the typical response is just like if they think that they could have done something to stop it, like, oh, maybe like I didn't perform well enough, I wasn't good enough, that like why did they let me go instead of someone else, and it's like mine wasn't quite like that, but some of it is just like out of your control,
Yeah.
and like you just have to move forward.
Didn't you have a similar thought when you got made redundant last time too?
Yeah, I went through the same thing. In terms of being redundant, but then also the dry stint of going through interviews and then being rejected. I think there was a period where I was trying to find a job for about 10 months
Oof.
and I couldn't find anything. So I know how it feels. I know what it's like, especially when you get to that final round and then they're like, no, see you later. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
And
And
sometimes
that's
they
it.
don't even get back to you. They're just like,
Yeah, they just send
"That's
you
it."
an email or something. Sorry, but sorry.
Unfortunately, we have found better candidates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, Thomas, did they give you some sort of feedback every time they said no?
No, they don't give feedback.
Yeah, okay.
It's a myriad of reasons, right? Some of it is just like they don't want to trigger a lawsuit for whatever reason. So, it's exactly as you said. Typical response is just like, oh, like we found candidates that better suited the position and role. The few times where I did get feedback, it was really not helpful because they're always vague, and it's always like, oh, like, or they might be like, we didn't think you were experienced enough.
That doesn't help the situation too, because then
Yeah.
you're like, okay, this is me then.
Yeah. And then there was another one where the feedback I got was I was too experienced. I was like, oh,
You're
like,
overqualified.
yeah, like how do I
no.
how do I be Goldilocks in this situation? It's like I need to be just right.
Yeah. Me going through the redundancy thing, because I've been made redundant twice. So I think the first time that really affected me. So I know how it feels in terms of the mental health side of things, because initially I thought, okay, well, sure, be made redundant. But that was because the company it just wasn't making any money. So they couldn't afford,
Yeah.
having people there. So I guess outside of that, I was thinking two things. It was me, or it's either, okay, I understand that this is the way it's going. So I've just got to try and find something else. I know how it feels. Hey, every time, mentally you got to prepare yourself to get in, apply for something, and then have the mental capacity to talk to people and try to sell yourself. I think it's really hard. And that's when I went through that dry period of 10 months of trying to find something.
Yeah, and I think that
Mhm.
because are you talking about the first time you got made
Yeah,
redundant? Yeah,
yeah.
that first time. There was such a massive difference with the first time he got made redundant as opposed to the second. The first time, you can definitely see that decline in his like emotional like well-being. It just slowly just like decline and decline. And at the same time, like the background is like he lived with his mom, but he was paying the bills as well. So he's using all his savings, and you're like kind of hopeful that, yeah, maybe this month I'll find a job. And then it's like just keeps rolling over and it just slowly like just chips away at you.
Yeah.
And you can definitely
Mhm.
tell that it was affecting him.
Yeah. When you've got financial commitments, it's terrible to go through that sort of experience.
Yeah, exactly. I feel that.
Yeah.
So between the first one and second one, did you do anything different, like to help yourself?
I think the biggest difference between the two experiences is the second experience. I knew what I needed to do because I've been through the first experience, and that was a massive learning curve. And I think the additional thing is having that network and knowing the people in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the biggest difference was that, because what I did as soon as I got made redundant the second time, I just made calls straight away. Hey, I've been made redundant. I need a job, and I consistently did that for basically a whole week. I just called everyone that I knew in the industry, and I believe within a month I got
It
an
wasn't even
offer.
a month. I think it's also because the first time you got made redundant was a very early stage of when you got into your career, and then the second time was still quite spaced out. So it wasn't like close together. It was quite spaced out. So you had the ability to gain your knowledge and your skills. So people started to know you for who you are and what skill sets you have. So even though
Mm-hmm.
you're reaching out, people are like, yeah, I know who you are. I know what you're capable of. So they're like, yeah, like I'm here to listen and here to help you out. So I think that was what I saw. And just
Mm.
your ability to go straight out and just talk to people. Like it's not like, hey, give me a job. It's just like, hey, how are things going? Like, is there any opportunities? Like that kind of stuff. So I think that was really good because sometimes you need to take the action too. Like you, even if other people may not have the job, but you're just planting the seed and also just making a connection and networking with people so that if something does come up, they have you in their mind.
Yeah.
I think it was just getting in front of people.
Yeah, it's a good point of just like getting yourself out there. Because one thing, like this is something I didn't do. I didn't update my LinkedIn to reflect that I was laid off. Didn't make a post. Didn't, and that's like it's in one way I don't want to seem like I need help or anything like that. Like don't want to feel pity. But at the same time, like because it's not like I look down on people who make those posters things like that. Because LinkedIn, especially, like that's the resource to use for that, right?
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, it was just, and part of it is just a personality thing where I just try to resolve things on my own.
Yeah, I can understand. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm doing decent of getting callbacks. I have tapped into my network for referrals as well. So it's just like, yeah, that's fine. I don't need to like make a public thing out of it.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I feel I don't know, just it's very out of my comfort zone to especially LinkedIn itself. Maybe because it's just like you know that that's where people look at where you are in your career and all the people you've connected with in the past or worked with in the past, they'll see where you are and it's like maybe it's a bit of insecurity for me.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
know how you guys feel, because it is a bit strange to post something on there saying, hey, I'm looking or I'm open for work,
Well, even if I change the new job, I feel weird to be like,
to
hey, I
update your
just got a new
thing.
job at this place. Like it's very weird to me.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that.
But I don't know. Over the years, I've just kind of been more open to that, because an opportunity is an opportunity. You know what I mean? If someone comes to you and says, hey, I've got a job for you, I know that you're looking, this could be something that you might shine well in. That could be an opportunity to get into or move into. So I
Mm,
think for me, over the time, I've always been more open to express if I need help. And I
yeah.
think we do need that, especially in the industry that you guys work in, and even in mine too. You've got to leverage off, people that you know.
Yeah. It's not really leverage, it's just that just talking, I guess, talking to people. And it is true. You do see that the people that are more open and just definitely out there just showing where they are, like status updates, I guess you could call it in LinkedIn, they definitely get just
It's just
opportunities. They've
exposure.
yeah,
Yeah.
opened up themselves
Hmm.
to other people to let them know and then get that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so another thing is just because you have been trying consistently and every single time, does it get easier as you apply for more jobs and getting rejected? Like, does it feel easier now as opposed to when you first started?
It's gotten a little easier, just in that, like, like I think of this as a like a sales pipeline. Like
Yeah.
you have to generate the leads and then take care of the ones in the middle of the funnel and then try to close the ones at the end of it. And then but you have to keep generating leads regardless of where you are in
Yeah.
the rest of the funnel.
Mm.
So that's how I've been kind of operating.
You should do a Google
Um,
ad for yourself. Please
yeah,
help Thomas.
initially I had like a spreadsheet. So like I wrote down every company that I applied to, and then had like a checkbox for like what stage I was at with them.
Damn.
And I was thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna find a job within 2 months, and then I can, from this data, I can generate like a really cool visualization of like how many company. It's like one of those I've seen the visualization with like company revenue to profit and everything,
Yeah.
or like dating, right?
Yeah.
Like how many people you messaged, how many people responded, how many dates you actually went on, and then how many people became like your girlfriend or something like that, right? So I thought it was gonna be the same thing for the job search, but like after like 50 applications in, I was like, yeah, this is too depressing to keep up with. I'm not doing this anymore. But with the rest of the interview, like, like I got to slowly refine my process. As I did more tech coding challenges, I got more comfortable with it. With the behavioral questions, I got more comfortable. Like I have like a spiel that I'm constantly refining and updating. So I think it's just like I'm just looking for small things to tweak. And then like same deal with my resume. Like it actually looks a lot different than when I first had it in the beginning of summer. So in that sense, it's been a little easier. And then it's just like kind of just like the thing that I remind myself is to just got to keep looking forward, like instead of thinking what could have been and all that.
Yeah, that's a good mindset to have, especially when you know that you're applying and you're trying to apply for multiple things. And I think at the end of the tunnel, it's just making sure that you're consistently moving forward. And I think that's really good that you're still thinking that. Because as you said, if you've been trying for so long, I know how it feels. It gets so demotivating, but it's good that you're still sort of pushing forward consistently. I think that's the most important thing.
And the other thing is like, yeah, if there was like two lessons from this, is one is always look forward. And second is don't cause unforced errors. And what I mean by that is one of the jobs I applied to was it's like within the federal government, Federal Reserve, the New York Federal Reserve. I had an on-site scheduled like this past week. And to get into the building, you need a valid government ID. Also they have like a business professional attire, which I had to like scramble to find something appropriate. So then I get to the office. I'll keep in mind that I haven't done like an on-site in-person interview in like since 2019. So a lot of thoughts and stress going through my head. And then I get to the building and I call the recruiter down to bring me in. And it turns out that my ID had expired 2 weeks ago.
Oh no!
On my birthday.
Oh my god!
And so like I couldn't even get into the building for my interview.
So then what happened then? Did they reschedule it or?
Yeah. Thankfully, I could reschedule it. So I have it rescheduled for next week.
Nice.
But it was just like these unforced errors, like
that would have been embarrassing.
It's like in tennis, they'll hurt you.
Surely they could let you out. Like you're still the same person, even though your ID's expired.
I get it. It's a security thing because like it's not just this guy outside who's inspecting my ID. Like my ID, they have to scan it into a system too.
Yeah.
And so if it's expired, it's not going to scan.
So aside from you saying that you just have to prepare or just do more preparation, what are some other lessons that you've also learnt in these processes of just applying for jobs or even just being made redundant, even if it's like a lesson in mindset?
Yeah. I mean, for one thing is to not take these things personally. Like whether it's a redundancy, whether it's the job rejection, like you can't take it personally, even though it's really annoying to get rejected towards the end of the interview process. Like you just can't take it personally. Cause like, first of all, you have nowhere to express that frustration.
Yeah.
And then like, and the other part is like, you have to maintain a daily schedule to keep yourself busy. It's like, it's kind of same deal. I feel like it's kind of same thing of like when, COVID first happened and everyone's still trying to figure out how to work from home. Like you need a schedule. You can't just work in your PJs. You need to get up, brush your teeth, wash your face, like have routines, right? So that you're like in the right mindset to go about your day.
Yeah. So what does your day look like now? Like what's your typical day in the life of Thomas?
I typically get up around like 8:30. Make coffee for me and the wife.
So cute.
Nice.
Where's my coffee? You don't make my coffee.
I'll see her off and then I'll like just read for a bit or do some meditation. And then I'll start more like interview practice or like I'll even find like side projects to work on. either just to keep busy, just to keep my mind sharp, or just to, it's like you gotta do something, right?
Yeah.
Something productive, and then that's kind of how my day goes. Like that's how I start it, and like that's kind of like if I can start it like that, I'll be okay for the rest of the day.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's also really true because I find that for me personally, if I don't start the day right or I have a plan but I don't follow it and I end up watching TV or something like that, then the rest of the day kind of just follows in that lazy kind of direction. Whereas if you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna get this done, you're on a roll and now you're like snowballing.
Yeah. No, it needs some discipline. It needs some discipline though. Like there were days where I felt like, yeah, I've seen everything I want to see on the. I've seen everything I want to see on the internet. Like nothing on YouTube, Twitter, Reddit. Like nothing on there entertains me anymore. Like that's when I know that that it's like I spent too much time on the computer.
Yeah. Is there a specific type of people that you lean on or get support from or you can get
Or even
advice
mentor or
from?
something, yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly just the people who are in the same position as me, like
Yeah.
like this like small cohort of people who also decide to take severance instead of continue with the company, and like some of them had more success than others. So like, but it's kind of like it's kind of like we all went through a similar traumatic event, so we all kind of understand where how we all feel. We're all in this terrible job market, and we've all gone through several rejections. We all also know how that feels and everything. So in that sense, that's where like we've been reaching out to each other.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
to
good,
like
though.
give support, resources, like interview tips and things like that. Most people are kind of hesitant to share their resume or to show you like what they do. Not to like, whether it's like insecurity or like don't like want to keep their advantage or something like that. Like most people don't share it, and like in this like I've had several coworkers who like offered to take a look at mine and see what they can help with, and showed me theirs as well to see like whether it's the language or like how they phrase things and stuff, like how it's worked for them.
Yeah.
That's so nice. That's so good that like sad that you guys all got made redundant at the same time, but good that it built a tight community between you to be able to help each other and look out for each other.
Yeah, definitely.
No, it definitely highlights the importance of supporting each other too, because you're all in a struggle like period, right? So it's good to have people who are there to, well, one, you can talk to. I think that's the main thing, like being able to talk to someone.
And they understand you because they're all in the same position.
Yeah, and then it's just trying to help each other, build from that and get out of that. I think that's awesome to have.
Yeah, it really helps because like like last time on the when we had a chat with the deep questions, like I mentioned, I was very thankful to have Felicia around to like help me snap out of when I'm in like a downward spiral kind of thing, right? Like it's really helpful for her to point things out of like whether things don't look so bleak or don't be so hard, but for more specific things, like it is helpful to have like a cohort of people to talk to rather than just like feeling like I'm like the only one in this situation. Like it is helpful to see like you're not the only one struggling, everyone is, but some people are doing better than others. That's fine. But always just like trying to figure out how to do better kind of deal.
That's good. And do you think Felicia is the main driver to you in terms of pushing you?
Support.
Yeah, pushing you to keep going and to know that, hey, keep your head up kind of thing?
Felicia's like secretly listening in on the
No, I got headphones in. She has no idea what we're talking about. She can only hear me, right?
Yeah.
Like the way that she supports is different, I think. It's it's kind of like, what's that, the love language thing? There's just, like people express themselves in different ways, right? And I think for her, it's not so much of like words of affection. It's for her, I think it's more of just like making sure that you're still thinking about things rationally. Like, hey, like why are you like, you don't need to be so stressed, don't need to be so worried, we're not in a bleak situation, you're fine.
Nah, she's a very realist.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like kind of have that reality check kind of thing where like I'm, I like to think ahead probably a little too much, where it's like, oh my God, we got this expense, this thing, this thing, this thing.
That's
And
like
like,
me.
oh, what's my income going to look like?
Yeah.
I think, some of it I think is like it's like a husband thing. Like, it's like, as soon as you get married, like your, like, at least like the mindset kind of changes, like of your responsibility, right? Uh, like whether it's cultural, societal, whatever it is, it's like I felt it myself where my mindset immediately just was different. I couldn't just think about myself like as an individual, as a sole unit. Like even though I was supporting my mom, like I could still think of myself as just myself.
Yeah.
And now it's just like now it's like the whole family unit, right? So yeah.
That was a question I wanted to ask. Like, how does it feel now that you're married, and what impact has it had by not having a job? Like, how has that affected you mentally or like physically, emotionally?
Like as in more of like the dynamic between.
No, just like what are you thinking? So a little bit of just expanding on what you were just saying, like now that you're a husband, like you're married, like how has that impacted you and your own family now? Like what are the things that you're most worried about, or like what do you think about? Is it mainly just money?
Definitely finance is the big part. Originally was thinking of like, checking to see what the housing market's going to look like next year. So I've been preparing for that, but mortgage rates are terrible and everything. Yeah, I think a lot of it is just financial, because to me that's like the grease in the wheels. It's like it's what keeps things running, right? It's like the enabler for a lot of a lot of what you want to do.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's definitely a big thing, because like I'm not. It's not so much of just like wanting to travel and then don't want to spend or something like that. It's more of just like definitely just thinking of how to prepare for the future, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can understand that, and I relate to that because I think of the same thing too. I'm very much like you, where I'm like, okay, finances is the priority in the fact of, okay, well, it's not about being able to save, like you said, to go on a holiday and then come back. It's more about, okay, well, how do we look at it from a medium to long-term perspective? Can we actually survive throughout, say, the economy issues that we're having at the moment? Can we look at buying another house, or doing these future things to build the family net worth, if that makes sense? So that's the thing that I'm always thinking about is that perspective.
Yeah.
And I feel like from a cultural perspective as well, the males generally are the predominant earners, or the main income earners.
Yeah, that's what you've grown up to know. Like the males are the providers, and or at least have to have a big part of that
part of the
contribution.
Yeah. So to have that flip, I could understand like how you would feel in terms of that.
Yeah, I think it's also like immigrant mentality as well.
Yeah.
Where I saw how I saw the work that my parents went through to like keep the family going, right? Like I saw how hard they worked, whether or not they were successful is another issue, but they tried, right?
Yeah.
So I saw that, and then like they put it upon themselves. And as a kid, you don't really have an idea, or at least I didn't. And then so now, like kind of getting closer to their position, I was like, yeah, like I feel it. I know how they thought about it, right? Because I remember before I was like, Mom, you don't need to be so worried about money. Like everything's gonna be fine. Like I don't know what you're worried about. And lo and behold, I am in the same.
You're in the same shoes, and then you know how
and
it
now
feels.
Felicia's the one that's telling you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah. Funny how things work.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm still a little bit like that, but a bit more careful. I guess I think I just have that mindset, or the positive mindset. It's like we'll always find a way, or it will work out in the end. Whereas like he's very like, no, you have to have something. You got to have money rolling in. Like you've always got like have that going. Whereas I'm just like, I am a bit like that, but then I'm also like, oh, even if, for example, potentially if I do quit and like just start my own thing or something like that, I'm like, yeah, I'll work out something. So it's just like that hopeful kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit different for me because I obviously work in a banking and finance. So I do this every single day. So I guess
You see,
I see
what people go through.
Yeah, I see what people go through every single day. So I guess that's my concern.
Yeah, like in terms of like preparation and stuff, like I have like 4 liters of water just stored in
Wow.
case there's like some like
Apocalypse.
disaster. Like yeah, like we can't get water like easily like during COVID or something.
Were you the ones that got a lot of toilet rolls?
No, I did not go that crazy because at the time I was by myself and I calculated how much toilet paper I was going through.
You actually calculate?
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard. You just like mark when you open a roll and then mark when you don't like when you use it up. And it was like turned out to be a month. So I had like, a 6-pack. I knew I was good for half a year. So I didn't need to panic. I could just buy rolls of like, but I mean, now it's different with Flea. Now it's just like, and we're
Oh
done.
my god, that is this guy. Like, we have this is like a 60 roll or something, and I don't know. Like, say you start a fresh new roll at the start of the day. I think 3/4 of that will be gone by the end of the day.
No, 'cause
I don't know
I
what he
use-
does with that
No,
toilet
because
paper.
I use toilet paper as tissue for
Yeah, but
other
it's
things
like
too.
that's still 3/4 of the roll, and I don't know
No.
how you use it. I don't know what you do.
It's just-
when it's just gone.
It's just because I got to use the toilet a lot,
Yeah, anyways, that's a sidetrack. Just to end off this whole conversation, would you mind just sharing your top 3 tips or advice for people who might be going through a similar situation, whether it's mindset or even just finding a job?
Top 3 tips. So it'd definitely be what I said earlier. Always look forward, maintain a daily schedule, and have a strategy.
So in terms of looking forward, like what helps you to keep looking forward?
Well, I keep applying to places, so I make sure that always generating leads.
Yeah.
It is depressing. It was depressing for a bit when like all the places I was applying to were not responding, or I couldn't even get a recruiter call. So that was like, then I had to reevaluate my strategy. Like my resume, for example, I had to reevaluate it. So that's what I mean. Like always have a strategy, and always look forward. It's like always look forward. It's more like don't just reflect on like things you could have done, like the what ifs, right? Like it's still something that I still work through because it's like it's really easy to be like, oh, what if I just took that offer? What if I didn't take severance? And then I still have friends who did take the offer and are continuing, right? And like, I know that they're not struggling like this. They're going through their weekends normally versus like job hunting. I just saw that on LinkedIn that the CEO posted that they had like an offsite to Disney World. It's like, oh, that could have been me.
Yeah.
So, it's like these, right? Where it's just like, no, like just got to look forward and make sure that you have a strategy for to move forward as well.
Yeah, there's always that should have, could have, would have kind of
Yeah,
situation.
questioning yourself and
Yeah,
whatnot.
exactly.
Yeah, and one side thing though, I think that I've learned in terms of in a position of someone who takes, so in a similar thing, like in the UX UI field, I find that there's a lot of people that come to you that just like, hey, there's this position, would you like to take it? Or hey, we're looking for someone. And for me, as a person who's never been acquired a lot, like it's very different. And for me, I think in that mindset where it's like, oh, if I don't take it, I'm gonna lose that opportunity because this is just too good to be true that someone's actually asking for me. So
Yeah.
some mistakes that I've done in the past is just acting too quickly and jumping on that offer, and then you end up not being in a place where it completely fits or suits your lifestyle or what you're looking for in the job. So I think there's like two ends of the spectrum where it's like, yeah, you did take that severance pay, but it's also like now you're struggling looking for a job, but it's also the other end where if you did jump on every offer that came through, it may not be what you wanted anyway.
Yeah, it's just like gotta understand like the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Yeah, just like Felicia said, it's also just more grass.
Yeah, more grass to cut through. Well, thank you again, Thomas, for joining us, sharing your experiences, because we know that being laid off, going through a redundancy, it's not a great experience, especially when you're trying to find something consistently and always being sort of left hanging at the very end of the experience. But I think more importantly is always, like you said, keep moving forward.
And the right thing would come to you as well. I think as long as you're working in yourself, upskilling, still persisting, being positive, and the good things will come to you.
Yeah, I think that's the way to think about it.
Yeah. But before we end it, is there any socials or plugs that you want to share so that people can find you, or maybe people can find you for a job offer?
My Instagram is private, so that's not useful. But I am on hiatus from my podcast that I run with friends. But there's going on with it called Friends Next Door.
Yeah.
We're on I think Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just like discussing life stuff as well. So
Yeah, we love it.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll share the link to your podcast, and
That's it.
yeah, that's it for today. And we've learnt so much, because I think no matter who it is that's going through redundancy, every journey is different, and it's just good to see it from your lens. So appreciate you sharing your experiences and pouring your heart out.
Yeah, all the way from New York.
USA.
All right, that's it for today. Thank you and bye.
Peace.
Bye.